Hey, what's up? Leroy here. So today I've got a brand new version of Live 12. It's the beta version. It's the new version that Ableton's just announced, which we'll be seeing released next year. There's been a ton of videos kind of going out on the internet so far. Today I thought I'd just bring you a few features that I've been enjoying so far. So let's dive in. Here we go. As you can see, it's got a bit of a refresh about it. There's some kind of new sort of subtle stylization. If we open up the device bar, you can see a lot of things will kind of remain the same for you as you've got them set up. But let's just kind of walk through. This up here is quite a new feature which I've been liking. This will sort of engage the scale mode. And what that means, whenever you have a selected clip, it will automatically lock that key and scale to that clip. So it kind of really helps with the whole musicality of your arrangements and your sessions. Previously this existed, but only in the clip view, and it still does exist in the clip view, but it's just kind of like more of a global kind of like scaling, which is a super nice touch. And you can go through here and, you know, kind of change all the different scales and go through them as you like. So I've got a kick set up here, nothing crazy. All right. Let's just kind of use this as sort of the foundation of this little session. If I move on and look at this, we got a brand new instrument. It's called MELD. It's more or less a synthesizer which utilizes two oscillators which have a whole variety of really unique oscillator types. So it's kind of hard to say like what kind of synth it is, but it has a lot of different oscillator types in there. So digital, FM, some kind of more obscure kind of sounding oscillator type patches. I've got this sort of sound that I've made. I was kind of looking to create a bit of a bass line, making this sort of like hollow sound. And you can see here that I've used a sub oscillator, and I've also used this harmonic FM oscillator type, and I can blend the two together, and you can see that like each of these little tabs will switch over to be able to edit the sound for each of these oscillators, right? So here I'm on A, here we've got B, and I can switch between them here. You can actually link them together. So if you want to make like simultaneous edits to each oscillator type, you can. Or if you want to do them independently of one another, you can delink them to create some more sort of broader, interesting sound design scenarios, right? There's a modulation matrix, and if you want, you can actually do this here and you can pop it out and you can see the whole modulation matrix fleshed out right in front of you. So it's a really complex modulation capabilities that it has here, which is really nice. Got some filters here, but what I'm really loving at the end of the signal chain is we've got this kind of spread. So we can really make the sound really wide and thick, and we can stack some voices on top of one another too. So yeah, probably follow a video up with this on a bit more of a deeper dive into this, but so far this is a really interesting synth. So let's create like a bit of a bass line using this. And this kind of brings me to one of the things that I've absolutely been loving about Live 12 so far, and that is the generative tools that we have now embedded in the MIDI clips themselves. And this allows you to create, you know, random sort of musical ideas, kind of using probability, which we've previously had, but now it introduces it in a whole new way, okay? So I've clicked on this MIDI clip here. It's just giving me one bar, and you can see it's locked to the A minor scale, which I have set up here. And let's just remove the browser for a minute. And so let's go up here. And this is where it gives us our generative tools, okay? So I'm gonna select this little drop-down menu and go seed. And what this does is it will automatically generate musical notes based on these parameters here. So I can go, all right, I'm gonna choose between an A and sort of like an octave above that. And as soon as I actually touch it, it'll create some notes. But if I turn this off, bring this down, so say we'll go, because I'm creating a bass line, we wanna go down the octave range, so we'll go to the A0, and let's just see what we come up with. I can actually click this. Here we go, and click this, and we'll go say A2, right? Great. And here the duration. So what this does is it will sort of like randomly select the duration of each note. So you can choose within steps, so 16ths and 8ths. It will create a randomization of both of those. And we can also have a randomization of different velocity levels for each note throughout the generation. Here we go, click this. Great, okay. So now what you can see is it's just randomly generated these notes based on these parameters. Let's take a little listen. I don't know, not bad, not bad. Now what you can actually do is you can drag this little bar up and down to add more or less density. Density meaning it will add more or less notes within the MIDI pattern. So if I drag this down, you'll see it's removing notes, and if I increase it, it's actually adding more notes. And so some of those notes have different velocity levels and lengths for each within that clip. Cool. If you turn this off and hit regenerate again, it will give you a whole new sort of pattern based on these settings. Let's try again. And what's really cool about this is every single note has been placed within the A minor scale. So we have this scenario where it's generating notes, but it's in a musical key, which is really great for coming up with something that's actually musical and really, really useful. So really, really loving this. Let's try something else. If I delete these two notes here, and I move to this little tab, this is our transformation tools. And so what we can do is we have a whole list of them here. And I haven't really experimented with all of them. However, I have experimented with the arpeggiation or the arpeggiate. And what this does is it will kind of arpeggiate notes within your MIDI clip, okay? So if I'll turn this off, let's go say down, up, we'll change the distance to 2 semitones. That's the amount of steps, and that's the rate at which it will do it. You can see, voila, it just arpeggiates those notes in that selected range, right? Let's try a different arpeggiate type. Let's go random. Nice, cool. So look how that sounds. Not bad. So we can change the gate length. So this will sort of like change the length of each individual note. And then from here, you can just really kind of like experiment with the different settings, or even just kind of like remove some notes as well. Cool. So this is a kind of like a really brief intro into the whole, generative tools and the transformation tools. We also have this tab here, and this kind of allows you to really dive deep into the actual MIDI itself. You can apply some humanization, quantization, and change the way that these MIDI notes perform to kind of give you all different kinds of unexpected results when it comes to generating MIDI patterns. And why this is so important for me is because you're kind of creating randomized musical outcomes here, which you might not have come up with before. And so these kinds of things, from a musical creation point of view, super, super cool. I've got a middle clip I've actually made beforehand. Cool. Now I've got a hi-hat here and a snare just to build on this track, so nothing crazy here. But let's apply this sort of like methodology to some percussive elements as well. So it's still a little bit like stiff, this track. Now, let me just show you one more thing. Command Option 3. So now I can see the device, right? The instrument rack, plus my MIDI clip in the same window, okay? So you might have seen this has been a bit of a thing with Live 12. I don't know why we never had this before, but it's a super nice touch to be able to kind of like quickly edit your MIDI clip and see the device at the same time. Let's use that same methodology. So here I have a drum rack setup, and this is just all different random closed hats and open hats and percussive elements. So I'm gonna use the same seed function, right? I'll turn generate off for now. And this is gonna place random notes to trigger these different random percussive elements. And so this will give us some kind of like percussion elements for this particular groove, all right? So we go change this, change that. Let's take the duration down and let's change the randomization. And let's bring the density down and we'll go generate. Great, let's take a listen. And if you want to hear that on its own, I'll hit solo. Great, so this is kind of like randomized drum programming now, you know? Now let's try that again, we'll regenerate. Now let's increase the density, add some more notes. let's introduce our snare. Right, cool. Hi-hat, kick, right, and bass line. That to me is an absolute revelation in terms of speeding up your workflow to create interesting percussive events for your track. Those little micro percussions, particularly in this particular genre, are really time consuming and can be really difficult to place in certain spots within a MIDI clip. So to come up with something like that is really, really useful. If you go to your arrangement view now, you can actually see the track mixer within the arrangement view. So that is a really useful thing too. You can be able to move around and copy and flesh out your track in the arrangement view, but also making like mix adjustments too. Super cool. Traditionally, a lot of people would have the mixer on like a separate window if you have, or a separate screen if you have one. I don't, so this is actually really useful. Let's go back to the clip view. Now, if I change the MIDI transformation or the MIDI generator to rhythm, what this will do is it will program a rhythmic event, but just for one note. So again, if you've got things like hi-hats or snares or whatever else, this will be really useful for that, and you'll see in a second. So you'll see that this changes. So I can change the steps, the pattern, and the density without getting too bogged down into that. Let's just see what that means. So if I go generate, boom. All right, so it's generated it there because I have the setting there. This is the steps. So it will move the steps around within the clip. The pattern will change the pattern, and the density will, like what we had with seed, will actually change the amount of notes. And split, what this does is it actually chops those MIDI notes in half. So if you're looking to kind of like ratchet hi-hats and stuff, this will be really useful. Let's take a listen to this now. Solo the clip. Wow, okay, cool. Let's remove some of those splits. Cool, change the pattern. And here, down here, you can change the velocity. So randomize the velocity values. And if we bring up the velocity, here we go. You can see like, as I change the velocity region, so the low and the high, it's actually moving each of those notes. Cool. So I've got something that's really quite dynamic and really percussive without having to really do a whole lot of like manual programming within the clip event, which again is an absolute revelation to me, because these sorts of things really add a whole new level to your track and really make them sound really tight and professional, and the groove as well, particularly for this kind of genre of music that I love. So again, nice work, Ableton, killed it. Let's take a listen to that with the whole track. Cool. Now let's move on to this track here. I'm going to apply the same thing, except I'm just want to create like a little snare roll. I'm going to use the same MIDI generator. I'll play this clip. Let's flip it up a bit. I love it that every time you make an adjustment, it fixes it in real time. And let's like increase the pitch on that. So there we go. Nice. Nice one. Let's go back to my track mixer, drop the volume of that so it's not so present, so it just sits underneath. Cool. All right, so we're still in the MIDI editing thing, and I want to do something similar to what we've been doing, except I'm going to explore a slightly different version of it. This one's called stacks, and what this does is it actually stacks notes on top of one another to create chords. Wowee. And for someone like me who is not very good at music theory and playing keys and all that sort of stuff, this is going to come in super, super handy. So I have this sound here. Sounds quite nice. So I'm going to use this MIDI generator tool called Stacks, right? So if I set the root note, this will be able to kind of program a chord for us, and it can stack up to 4 notes on top of one another. So root is A, the duration, well, you'll see exactly what that means. Okay, there we go. Cool. All right, so 8s. Let's see what that sounds like. Great, so it's stacked 4 notes on top of one another within the scale, all right? So I've got this chord that's in key with my tune because we've got this selected as well. Let's try the inversion. So this will revoice the chord. All right, so it inverts the root note. Great. Oh yeah. Now this offset actually shifts the chords within the MIDI clip. Nice. Okay, I'm done with this. Okay, so let's create another chord. All right, so if I click this, all right, great. So it's giving me another chord. I'll change the root note to kind of that there, and we'll change the inversion. And let's switch the duration to something shorter. Okay, let's go. Let's change the inversion. Again, every adjustment that you make does it in real time, so you can really kind of get a sense of what's happening and how you're able to actually, come up with something new and interesting. Cool. This little icon here will change the way, or add another chord, and then you've got these little icons that will go up and down. It will change the root note and add different voicing. You've got to kind of muck around with it a little bit so to get the chords kind of in key, but I came up with this little clip beforehand. Super simple. I'm not looking for complexity here. I'm just looking for something melodic to complement the groove. Winner. All right. Last thing, Granulator 3. All right. This is a crazy little machine.
Make it funky, 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 make it funky.
Wow. So this is kind of like a new version of Granulator based on Granulator 2. This is kind of like a sampler that plays back samples in a whole new way that you've probably never really thought of using before. I've got a vocal sample in here that I pulled from my browser. It sounds like this.
Make it funky.
Sounds pretty wild. And what we can do is we can actually use the parameters down here to kind of like change the playback position. All right, let's change the position. So there's a playhead. Right. Now let's change the scan.
Make it funky. Make it.
I mean, I'm just picturing this through like a breakdown and right before a drop. It's got a whole bunch of other features in here. So we've got this section, so we've got 2 envelopes, we've got an LFO and a filter. And so we can assign all these to these different parameters to really kind of like amp up the modulation capabilities, which I think is a bit more of a departure from Granulator 2, which didn't have quite as much modulation functionality. So let's hear that in context. And last but not least, there's these different modes down here. So you can kind of go classic, loop, or cloud. I've been having a lot of fun with this cloud version. What it does is it kind of sends a whole bunch of like play triggers, I think. And just continues to play it back in this really unique, randomized way. Wow, that's probably freaking you out right now. Anyway, so as you can see, there's a lot of really useful things so far. There's heaps more to talk about. I'm not done with videos on this yet. If you're still with me, thanks for checking out the video. If there's anything that you've been loving, make sure to bang it in the comments below, and we'll see you next time.